This morning, by the way, my name is Daniel Posney. This morning, I'm going to talk about my story a little bit, and I think it's going to probably go to about 4 or 5, maybe 6 different episodes. And so there'll be 20 to 30-minute little episodes about my story. And it's a pretty good story. There's lots of things that I've done and things that I've experienced and had lots of love in my life and lots of pain and suffering also. But there's some parts in there that I think that would be good to share with you. And there's always going to be something uplifting at the end, and always some message or lesson to be learned at the end of the story. So this time, I thought I'd start off with my greatest loss. And I hope you can relate to this or tap inside yourself to see if there's something in there that resonates. And one of the losses that was one of the greatest losses in my life is losing myself. And it's not something that we really can or want to spend much time looking at, because it's too hard. It's too hard to look at how I've lost myself. And we hear stories about people saying, well, it's made me who I am and made me stronger and that kind of things. And that may be true, but it also can be a cover. Can be a cover to um, not wanting to look at something so deep and dark and hard to navigate. Why did I do this? Why did I lose myself? And so here I go. I lost myself because it's just a natural process of becoming an individualized sovereign being. And, when I first came in, I imagined 3, 4, or 5 years old, I was just a bright light of sunshine and no crying, no whining, none of that at all, just sunshine. And I inside just felt so innocent and curious and wanting to love and to be loved. And that's how I wanted things to be. And then little by little, little flicks to me started to happen. I remember one of the first flicks was, I think I was in first or second grade, and there was some kids there, and they were doing something called tattooing their hands. And how they would tattoo their hands is they take an eraser on a number 2 pencil, and they'd rub the top of their hand over and over until it went through the skin, and they created some little cross or some little thing. And it was like, it was kind of you didn't want to be different, you didn't want to um, not join in that, because it was kind of a toughness thing for us little boys. And it was like, hey, they found this new thing. So I think that was one of the first times that I can remember that I started to give up myself so that I would fit in. And, of course, looking back at it now, maybe I might be a little stronger and say, that looks like it hurts, and I don't do too many things that hurt. But can I help you or something? I'm sure I would have had some kind of funny remark or something to say, no, thank you. But it was little things like that that started to change me. And then, of course, when I got a little bit older, you like the intensity of that starts to grow and grow, and you give up more and more of yourself so you can fit in with people, or not look like an idiot in front of this cute girl, or look tough in front of this bigger guy. And you start to lose yourself. I remember I got bullied in this, I think it was the 6th grade, and I just completely shut down. I didn't know how to deal with it. And, I hadn't been taught about martial arts and protecting myself yet. And I just was just really stunned that someone would treat me in such a way. And it just really shocked me. And I completely gave up some of myself. Like, I lost a part of myself in that moment. And I know that the people that are involved in these little episodes of our lives, they're not meant to, they don't mean to have such a negative impact on your life so that that little thing you'll remember for the next 50 years, and it'll play on every relationship that you ever had. That's not their intention. But there is definitely something being felt and something being understood in that. And I have to imagine that there's some karmic thing being played out, or some energetic thing being played out. I don't know all the answers to that, but there's definitely some energy being presented and played out and received through all this. And it's ours sort of to understand that energy whenever we can, and then release that scene, because it was just meant to play out in that one moment. But if I'm talking about my greatest loss, I think that would be it, is that I lost myself. And that's kind of intertwined with another greater loss. And so if I look at myself, and I kind of look at myself in a non-dualistic way, that I'm not really here, and it's my egoic mind that is the only one that finds loss. I look at that and I say, okay, so it's really my egoic mind that says, I was lost. But who is the I that was lost? It's the identity, the personality, the egoic self. But there's still some pain in that, so I want to acknowledge that. But the one that comes before that is that loss of, let's see if we can close our eyes, and I'll let this just come out and see what happens here about the greatest loss. Imagine that you are pure loving awareness, that you exist in a place that is connected with all things as all things, that there is no labeling and categorizing and judging of anything. It is as it is. It all exists as pure, conscious, loving awareness, which is what you are. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. You're in complete harmony with all things. And then an idea comes, and you can feel it building from the center of the universe. And it's coming in from like a track of love, like it's following this track of love, and it's coming closer and closer to you. And you start feeling a separation, not a separation as in, completely disconnected from, but an individuation. That you feel an individuation coming and building also in a place that's starting to be described as something inside of you, something that is you. And it starts to manifest itself into this individuated expression of the one. The one is something that you know as yourself. This conscious loving awareness is something you know as yourself. There's no way that you could even think that you are separate from this, because it is all things, it is all emotions, it is all frequencies, and it is what you are. And in some realms, and some lower frequencies, lower realms, people call this awareness, this you, this everything, they call it God. They call it different names so that they can understand it for themselves. But in where you have existed, what you know yourself to be, there's nothing separate here. It's all this. And then this intention keeps on building. And it's almost like you lay down to go to sleep. And you woke up in a dream. And the dream was bright and magical and amazing and curious and crazy and all these things and objects, and your whole way of being needed to shift into edges and separation of objects and knowing things by different names, and there was this voice, there was this communication, this language. And you started to forget. You started to forget this feeling, this state that you were in forever, forever. Now there was this succession of days and nights. Now there was this limited time, limited space. It came from all that is, everything, all things, no time, no space, into this place, into this reality. If you said in your life that you don't have any childhood trauma or you had a pretty good childhood, I invite you to look a little deeper. Because there's some quantum realities, physics that we know to be true. One of them is we exist as consciousness, and consciousness has no boundaries or borders. And consciousness is, you can't even call it fast. You can't even call it faster than the speed of light because it exists everywhere as all things. So if you play that out and you attach the story of birth, where did I come from? Where did I go? What happened when I found myself here in this body, in this baby body, crying? If you understand a little bit more about quantum physics and quantum realities, then you didn't really go anywhere. And yet there's this feeling of deep separation. So my greatest loss is the feeling, the experience of that separation. And yet I know that I didn't ever go anywhere. There's this idea that I was birthed into something and I'm going to die into something. But I never went anywhere. I'm having a very real dream. But in that dream is me experiencing this loss and knowing it in my heart and knowing it and recognizing it. And still, while I recognize it, go have fun in this dream, go experience and create in this dream and create from that. So imagine if you could experience that knowing, that realization, that deep inside of you, the reason why, or one of the reasons why, things haven't been working out, or you haven't experienced the greatest love of your life, or you haven't really fully known love of yourself. Could it be that there's this deep wound inside about your greatest loss? And if that isn't acknowledged, if that isn't looked at and witnessed, then it's going to be this thing that's always underneath everything that we do. But if we acknowledge it and say, yes, God, I completely feel that everything was so completely perfect. And then I was led to believe that this is normal. And I needed to find a way to comfort myself, to make this seem more normal. And even the pain of the story that death is this thing to be afraid of, that's the one thing that I can count on. That's the one thing that I can look forward to sometimes and go, wow, there's going to be a coming home. How can I blend the two? How can I blend home into this dream, into this place that I'm at now? How can I bring in the pure, loving, conscious awareness into the dream that I'm having now? And turn it from the greatest loss into the greatest find. We think of our losses in our life of things and relationships that we've ended or changed, and they're no longer in our life. Maybe our greatest loss is our father dying when we were 12, or our grandfather or grandmother dying, and that's one of our greatest losses. And that is true. It really hits our heart and really affects us when we say we have to recognize they are no longer in our physical reality. Ooh, that's a hard one to look at. I know a lot of people are experiencing that right now, and I've been kind of going through that myself, of looking at all the people that are no longer part of this reality. That this there's a that if this is a movie, their actor's been killed off. You know, Thich Nhat Hanh, Meatloaf, Bob Saget, lots of relatives or friends, and they're no longer part of this story. And they're remembered in our hearts, but they're just not here physically. And that's a difficult one to contemplate. And it's also one that I want to contemplate for myself. There's going to be a time when um, the reality that includes Daniel Posney isn't activated anymore. That perspective that Daniel sees the world is not activated anymore. And I know that we all contemplate that at certain times in our life, sometimes early in our life, and sometimes at the last minute. So for me, contemplating the greatest losses in my life, especially this like initial greatest loss of having the experience of being separate from what people call God, or separation from oneness. I wanted to acknowledge that so I can live, so I can really realize that there is something deep inside of me that longs for this connection, that longs for connection with all things, not just to be, not to be a spiritual person, but to be normal, not to be even uh, a wise, enlightened person. It's not about being a person. It's about being what I am, not the kind that I am, but the what I am. I am connection. I am consciousness. And if I bring that into my life in all things, existing as this pure loving awareness as much as I can. So I can't help but do that. I can try and be a better person at that. I can try and be more aware of that in my dream that I'm having. But I cannot help but be conscious, loving awareness is what I am, is what you are. When I'm angry, I'm conscious, loving awareness of the anger. When I'm depressed, I'm aware of that. That is what I am, is that awareness. The emotions and the feelings that are happening, but I am the one who is aware of the happening. Good talk. So, time to think about what your greatest losses have been, and not just the losses of the people and the material things that have been lost in your life or no longer part of your physical reality, or relationships that ended in a bad way. All those things. Go back before things became a reality and see what you can find there. See if there's something deeper in there that you can say, okay, this is where I'm getting to something. Because see if you can find something that would be common to every human being. whatever your religious preference or understanding, it would still be the same. See if you can turn that greatest loss into a reconnection with what was perceived to be lost. See if you can reconnect with that feeling. Let's see if we can go back and do it again. That feeling of connection, oneness, singularity, stillness, presence of being, loving awareness, a flow of energy, realizing that if you can be in awareness, exist as awareness, then you exist as all things. And it's completely natural, normal. And by focusing this awareness, this consciousness into different frequencies, you are part of different creations. Now take the consciousness that you're in now and see how, as you consciously move your consciousness, your awareness into higher frequencies, how the experience changes, how you start to attract different things in your life, how you start to create from a higher place. Take a deep breath. Relax your shoulders, relax your eyes, relax your body. Say to yourself, as love, I rest in peace. As love, I release my mind into the presence of God. As love, I release my mind into the stillness of loving awareness. Take a deep breath and say to yourself, I accept and embrace, exhale, love into my body, mind, and heart. I accept and embrace love into my mind, body, and heart. Thank you. Thank you. I love you. Bless you. I hope you have the most wonderful day.